This episode is sponsored by Chapman and Company.
Hi there and welcome to The Coffee Grinds, hosted by Mug.News. We are your baristas, Justin Krug
and Kaitlyn Clays. We have a great menu today that highlights impressive student entrepreneurs in Middle America.
So grab a cup of coffee and let's get to the grind.
Hello, Justin. Good morning.
Good morning, Kaitlyn. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It's a beautiful day outside, so I'm really loving that, beautiful fresh air so far.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Kaitlyn.
So, for this episode, as you can see, it's just us, the baristas, as you can tell. And essentially, this episode is going to be a bit of a recap. So, Justin, I'm thinking we can talk about some of our highlights, takeaways, and what we're inspired to do in the future. Does that sound good to you?
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a plan, Kaitlyn. I'm excited to dive into it and really take a step back and recap our experience doing this series. I think that there's a lot of takeaways, a lot of key things that we learned, and a lot of fun that we had along the way.
Yeah, how many students have we done? Like about 13, 14?
I think that's about right, yeah, 13 or 14 episodes, which it's crazy. It's crazy how fast it went.
Blows my mind. And, it has been so cool to cover students all over the Midwest. We've got some Minnesotans, which is my home state. We got some Wisconsinites, which is my university state. And not to mention a lot of Nebraskans.
Hey, yeah. Gotta love Nebraska. I believe we're the only state that's landlocked twice. So, fun fact there.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to go over everything, and I'm so excited for some of our answers. And so my first question for you, if we want to get started, is What did you learn from this experience? What is a takeaway you have?
Ooh, starting with the meaty question right away. I would say that my biggest takeaway or learning opportunity within the series was, I guess it showed me the growing support for entrepreneurship at the university level. So I just graduated from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Spent a lot of time mingling with folks in the Center for Entrepreneurship at UNO, and in all of our conversations, Kaitlyn, I was thrilled to hear that other students were having similar experiences in their universities. There was support for entrepreneurship. Maybe student programming, student organizations. Maybe it was funding opportunities, mentorship opportunities. But if you would rewind this maybe 10 years ago, I am almost certain that you'd find a completely different scene in terms of the support for entrepreneurship and the startup scene. So I would say that was one of the coolest things to see and learn was just the growing support for startup programs at the university level. Just black and white in comparison 10 years ago. But Kaitlyn, what about you? What was your biggest learning moment or takeaway?
Well, let me tell you, but before I tell you what's on my mind, a round of applause for Justin Krug, everyone. He graduated. That is no small feat. And I'm just wanted to say, super proud of you. You've totally come a long way. So graduation is no small feat. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. So then to answer your question is, speaking of student involvement and entrepreneurship. So I had no idea how early some of our students had begun their entrepreneurship journeys. A lot of times they didn't even know. So I think of Hunter Bergman. There was a couple other students who started businesses in high school. And that blew me away because even a lemonade stand, that's entrepreneurship. You're selling a product. And I didn't conceptualize that you can start so early. And the other thing is that there's no better time to start than the present. So that is a major takeaway that I got. And you don't have to start in college. You can start prior. So I thought that was just really cool.
Yeah, we love that. Absolutely. Kaitlyn, you're 100% right. Another name that comes to mind is Rachel Weidick. We actually went to high school together, and she had a business in high school, and it's just crazy that they take so much time and energy away from everything else that they've got going on in their lives to do this. And it's just, you learn so much through it. So really have to respect the grind there.
Yeah. Well, and I also really appreciate how much they're giving back to their community. Every single student that we talked to had a great business. And if they were a high school student, like, it was just so cool to listen to. And so I found that really inspiring. And I'm really happy that we got to have the chance to talk to people even. Yeah, so then my next question, and this can be a comedic or a serious answer, whichever you like, but what is a highlight that you had, whether that be a funny moment or a quote that someone said and you're like, oh, I'm going to hold on to this?
You know, this is a really good question, and one that I really thought about a lot, and spent a lot of time like this, just really thinking about this one. But Kaitlyn, I would say I've been thinking about this question a latte, and you might have already guessed it at this point, but my biggest highlight from the entire series has to be all the coffee puns, okay? I'm a simple guy. Listen, I can't fully espresso how much these help me get through my week, and seriously, these puns were just the perfect blend.
I swear, okay, I think I'm gonna express kind of what we had said to like the in our meetings for sketching this series. So Justin and I actually sat down together and we listed out all the kind of puns that we could possibly make with coffee and getting to the grind, as they say. And I remember telling one of my friends that. I'm like, I'm serious. We sat down and thought of all these puns. And she was like, I wouldn't expect any less from you and from what I talked to Justin. It was actually Callie McCartan, who we've had featured on Mug.News a couple times. But she and you two had spoken a little bit, got to know each other. And she was like, oh, from what I know about Justin, yeah, I can totally see the two of you doing something like that.
Yeah, we had a little workshop about coffee puns. And, to be fair, this series, as great as it is, would not have been as great without the coffee puns. That was the last 1% that was missing, but that 1% made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I love it. I love that you brought that up. Because my highlight is actually related to coffee as well.
Hey.
So I'd say, okay, and I seriously say, I love the question. Like, it's our final question that we ask in every interview, but what coffee would you be? And I swear that is so funny to me. And one of my highlights from that is a student had said, oh, red eye coffee. And I had never heard of that ever. And as a barista in the past at an actual coffee shop, I still had not heard of that. So I just imagine someone coming through the drive-thru and I'll be like, what did they just say? So I learned what that was. And so again, I had no idea and I thought I knew coffee.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important point to make, Kaitlyn, that it's not like we are just some people that decided, hey, we're just going to call ourselves baristas. We have barista talent right here. It's Kaitlyn Clays, everybody.
Well, and hey, I think it just goes to show that there's always something to learn. I learned something new in every episode, and that was definitely a highlight. I was like, well, there we go.
That is awesome. Well, Kaitlyn, taking a step aside from, coffee and the puns that we had all throughout this little journey, what did this series and how did it inspire you?
That is a fantastic question. So what inspired me is that I actually learned a lot about this process. So as you know, we do this show together, and then afterwards I do the editing for episodes. And at first, I will say I was a little bit nervous doing the editing at the very beginning because, it's a little nerve-wracking. This is kind of my first major piece with editing. And so basically from this learning experience, not only did we get to talk with amazing entrepreneurs, students, young people who are really getting to the grind and doing everything they can in the entrepreneurship community, but I got to learn so much about editing, and I feel so much confident, like a lot more confident moving forward and inspired to create more content for Mug.News regarding entrepreneurship of all walks of entrepreneurship. So I feel really inspired to still keep telling these stories, keep interviewing people. And I would say that's kind of what I'm most inspired about. What about you?
Well, I love that, Kaitlyn. That's super awesome, and cannot wait to see some more of the content that ends up on mug.news as a result of you. So looking forward to that, and I'm sure some of our other viewers are as well. But I would say that this series inspired me to continue growing my network of student founders and entrepreneurship activists. In order to produce this series, that was a must, right? We had to reach out to people. But this series really taught me something about myself, and I'm a connector. I love building relationships with people, especially those that are young, entrepreneurial-minded student founders. These people are crazy. They've got so much going on in their lives, and yet they're dedicating a big chunk of their time to get this business going on the side. And I really have to respect that. I think that something that I had mentioned in previous episodes as well is kind of the importance of connecting bridges to different entrepreneurial kind of hotspots. And I think that we were able to accomplish that to a degree with this series by bringing on students from Minnesota, from Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, etc. Building bridges, I love that. Maybe the last thing out of all of this is kind of diving into that entrepreneurial mindset. And I think this speaks to people like us, Kaitlyn. We don't have businesses currently, but we are doing everything in our power to kind of jump into the startup scene and be a force to be reckoned with, for positive change in the entrepreneurship scene in the ecosystem here in the Midwest. And I think inspiring more people to do just that, I think really good things will come of it as a result. So I know that was a lot, but those are, I guess, how this series inspired me.
Mm-hmm. That is a fantastic highlight to end on. I'm serious. So this has been an absolute blast to be in the coffee shop, to be working together. And this is the last time we'll be in the coffee shop for series 1. So this has been a fantastic journey. Justin, do you have any last comments to add before we close this out?
Oh, man. That's a lot of pressure to put on me. But no, I feel pretty good about this, Kaitlyn. Thank you so much to everyone that has followed this journey along its way. And if for whatever reason you're on this episode and you haven't seen any of the others, what are you doing? We got to go back to episode 1, my friend. But really, this was a whole lot of fun. It was such a pleasure to do this with you, Kaitlyn. Really enjoyed it, and it was great to have these conversations with student founders across the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one last thing before I kind of give our closing statement is we are also a podcast. Woo!
Woo-woo!
So if you, there's absolutely no excuse for you not to be able to consume some sort of Coffee Grinds content. So, and all jokes aside, make sure to follow us at Mug News Official, at Clay's Creates, or Justin Krug on LinkedIn. Thank you again so much for coming into the coffee shop every other Tuesday. We've been so happy to have you here. And make sure to go ahead and email below to see if there's any other students that you recommend we have a chat with. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time at the coffee shop.